I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
So when we have clothes that are too small for us, we throw them out, right? And we buy new ones. But what about when life starts to feel like we're outgrowing it? I forget where I heard it, but it was a few years ago, them saying that if you haven't worn something in a year, you get rid of it. Or if you haven't used something in the past year, you get rid of it. I remember, for some reason, a purple shirt is coming to mind for me because it was a clean shirt. It was crisp, it was pristine, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna save this shirt for a specific time. I never wore it. The tags were on it, it was fresh, and I just never wore it. And a year went by and I never wore that purple shirt. To the point I'm sure that I outgrew it. Why? Because I was exercising a little bit different, my lifestyle changed, and that shirt no longer even fit me. What happens in life to us when we start to recognize that we are outgrowing the life that we've been building for ourselves? It can be so uncomfortable. It can also be scary too, because if you think that your life has been on a certain trajectory or path this entire time, and now you're starting to realize something may be different about it, well, what happens? Am I failing? Am I doing something wrong? Okay, and some indicators of life changing for you can simply be your lack of interest, your inability to commit. Okay, you find yourself putting things off that you used to be very eager to be a participant in. Even certain connections, even certain conversations just don't fit anymore. And I can tell you personally, if I look at my life now in comparison to a year ago, to this date, very different. There's been a very big overhaul in my life, mentally, emotionally, relationship-wise. There has just been a big change. And it's so funny because there was a lot of resistance to certain things. Even if it wasn't me physically resisting things, there was a mental resistance. There was this emotional resistance or energetic resistance to this desire to have the things that I say that I wanted. See, the funny thing is, a lot of times as we are growing through life, not just going through it, but when we are growing through it, there's a certain level of discomfort because the shoes that we wear, okay, the clothes that we wear, the identity that we wear, doesn't fit us anymore. We may not always readily accept that or even acknowledge it or just recognize it because we are so used to being who we are or doing things in a certain way that we don't realize that we may be outgrowing certain things. That's why life is feeling very disruptive, very uncomfortable, very unsettled, very uneasy. And I think one thing to notice or just at least be aware of is once you do have awareness to a certain conflict, if you will, or a certain issue, it is very hard to turn that off. It is very hard to ignore it. Okay, and this is why a lot of people say ignorance is bliss, because if I'm ignorant to certain things or certain changes, then I'm never really impacted. I can continue life as I did and be okay, be unfazed, be unaffected, and just go on about my day without really having to experience the real discomfort that comes with me needing to change anything. When you are seeking a life that has promise, that is success by your definition, that has love, okay, that has safety, that has all the components that you desire out of your life, there's going to be a need to move. There's going to be a need to relocate. Okay. Sometimes you are trying to force yourself into things that don't fit. Ooh, places and things. Okay. You're trying to force yourself into these relationships that are very small. Okay. And what I mean by that is that maybe the desire to grow or expand is not the idea that both of you guys have in mind, or at least the interpretation of it is very different. Notice that by how excited or how invigorated you feel talking to this person versus when you're not around them. Okay, a true marker is usually when I am no longer around this person, do I miss them? Do I seek to talk to them again? Okay, do I feel energized afterwards? Or do I feel drained? Am I dreading the next time I have to see this person? Am I kind of rejecting calls or constantly rescheduling or rain checking certain things? Even when it comes to our pursuits, the things that we used to be happy about, am I now dreading doing it? When you are starting to outgrow life, you will also start to outgrow certain patterns. And this is a difference between backsliding and, lacking a certain level of discipline because you may be experiencing a lull in life, or you just feel kind of defeated and discouraged and disoriented or even overwhelmed. And you notice it starts to change in your behavior in terms of how you move throughout the day. That's different. But when you don't have motivation for the things that you used to have motivation for, and everything else seems to be going mostly well, then that might be an indicator that this thing you've outgrown. I know for myself, for example, as an artist, going through different stages of life and different experiences, I would rely heavily on different mediums to express myself, right? At one point it was drawing, at another point it was the guitar and music, okay? It's writing, okay? It's the gym, it's running, right? All these mediums, and then at some point in time, the priority for these things may change, maybe for one reason or another. And that's always interesting for me to kind of be mindful of and see, well, what has changed in my life? Okay? Do I not desire this thing anymore? Or am I resisting it because it requires me to be a little bit more honest about myself and what I am pursuing? But a sign of you changing and a sign of you growing is when things start to become very uncomfortable to just sit in. Okay, even in relationships, when you find yourself starting to become very sensitive of certain things, okay, and there's always this unrest, then that's an indicator that something needs to change. Any things are not necessarily taking place the way that they need to be for harmony to exist. The beautiful thing about evolving as a person is, well, it requires you to be okay with expanding who you are. And to grow does not simply mean to just change. Because a lot of times we think that we need to change our entire identity. You got to have the ego death. You got to get rid of a part of you that was this, and that. I think there's too much information out there that is teaching people or telling people or encouraging people to reject the parts of themselves that they already feel are defective, versus, hey, you might be better off getting to know this side of who you are, because you can never escape yourself. You will always be the longest relationship that you have in your life. And if you spend an extended duration of it trying to avoid yourself, you will exist in relationships, you will exist in pursuits, you will even exist in a lifestyle that constantly requires you to not be who you are.
Uh-oh, the last cookie.
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
And because of that, you will always feel a need to reject, or you'll always feel aimless about what's taking place and what needs to be done for you to actually be happy. The goal in this life is not self-rejection, okay? Self-protection, okay, is self-acknowledgement, is self-realization, okay, is self-improvement, is self-accountability, but it is not rejection. Because if you realize, rejection just gets you more frustrated. Rejection leads to more frustration, if you will, because we can't get rid of ourselves. How beautiful is that? The world is already telling you that you need to be something else, and you haven't even learned to be yourself fully yet. And that's not fair. What would it look like for me to actually experience what it is to evolve, expand, and grow as a person versus constantly change my identity to fit this mold that somebody else is telling me I need to fit in? That's what growth is, right? Growth to me looks like ascension, right? Like a flower, you plant that seed and it continues to just grow more towards the sun, right? Metaphorically speaking. That's how a flower grows. But if you're constantly changing, it's like, well, the seed hasn't grown yet, so maybe I should pluck it, get rid of it, plant a seed somewhere else. Oh, that seed's not growing fast enough? Let me pluck that out. Let me put it somewhere else. Or, well, let me start raising cattle now because now the plant growing is not working. Oh, the cattle isn't working now. All right, cool. Let me get rid of that. Okay? It's a big difference between growing and understanding who you are expansively and having different mediums of connection and just self-actualization versus constantly changing where nothing of who you are is ever rooted in anything that you do. That discomfort that comes with you outgrowing your life is an indicator that you've been doing a lot of things for so long that are not who you are, that are not a part of who you are. You're capable, but it doesn't mean that it's for you. And it's a very, very interesting sweet spot to understand and how to navigate that. But I think it's beautiful when you actually do connect the dots. Take a look at your life. What keeps coming up in life that you continue to avoid? Okay? What is it that scares you but also feels very important and necessary? What do you feel passionate about but you may actually be putting off because, well, you don't want to fail, or you don't want to do it wrong, or you don't want to be judged? Okay. Or you fear that it might not be successful. How do you define success? Because the beautiful thing about life is it will start to hold up a mirror. Okay. And the universe will be very literal in terms of how you talk to it. So if you are confused about what you want and you keep going through this Rolodex of the things you want, well, the universe is going to give you that. It's going to give you all these things that you asked for. And none of it is going to feel stable. The reason why is because you're not stable. But when you finally get clear on a certain trajectory of what's firm, what's important, what's necessary, okay, and what you actually value, you will start to get more of that. Okay, you will always be supported. All right. So when life starts to feel like you're outgrowing it and things start to shift and relationships are starting to change, okay, or what you used to be very intentional and energized about is no longer there, don't freak out. Ask yourself and get curious. Hey, what is changing? What have I been asking for as of late? And how is that showing up? Because for bigger things to have room in your life, you need to make room first, okay? And we don't always see that, right? We want success. We want big success. We want big wins. But if we take a look at our home, right? Our internal space, our mental space, our scarcity, we don't have enough room for these things to have room, okay? They don't fit anywhere. So if you desire this new big life for this part of you that you are looking to be more intentional about, or if you've been asking for expansion or that's your trajectory as of late, I want you to take a look at how much room you've been making in your life for it. Is there room? Are you afraid to make room? Okay, do you fear what you're going to lose more than what you're going to actually gain? Right? Sometimes it's not even a fear of failure, it's the fear of success. Okay, because when we do fear success, we also fear our responsibility when it comes to it. We fear ridicule. We fear, if you have imposter syndrome, being found out. Okay, you also fear losing that thing. So success can be a fear too. So we will rather exist in this cyclical thing of perpetual complacency and or failure. It's easier. Okay, it challenges us less. But when you start to outgrow your life, life will require you to take a good look and listen. And it's up to you to decide, what am I going to do about it? If life was a person, it would be your best friend. By definition, our best friend is the people that want the best for us. They have our best intentions at heart. So obviously they're going to look out for us. Just remember that. Your life is relying on you to make some pretty big decisions and some good decisions, because it's going to support you along the way. You feel like life is starting to become a little bit shifty and you feel like you're outgrowing it as of late, I want you to just ask yourself, what have I been asking for? What does that look like? Okay. If it feels like my finances are starting to change in an interesting way, it's like, well, maybe it's because I'm not doing other things that distract me from what I actually desire. And now I'm focusing on this one thing and I'm immersing myself in my craft and what's important versus kind of scattering. Because even that, time is currency. And sometimes we spend too much of our time in spaces that don't really invest in us in return. So just take a look around. Take a look at your history, okay? Clean out your closet. See what doesn't fit anymore. That shirt that you may used to like, that was your favorite shirt, may not fit, may not even be in your style, okay? It was just something that you wore because it felt comfortable. Go big and then go bigger, okay? But in the meantime, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other and take flight.